Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. I'm also excited to share my book, Straight from the Admissions Office, a review of my biggest takeaways from the first few hundred podcast episodes. It's packed with direct insights from admissions professionals and practical tips to help students and their families navigate the college admissions process. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you today to Dr. Bryan Gross, who's the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Athletics at Hartwick College. Dr. Gross, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
John, I'm doing great. It's really great to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor and a pleasure. And so, Dr. Gross, before we even get to the questions about the great Hartwick College, could you tell me, how'd you end up becoming the Vice President for Enrollment Management? And I see that athletics is in the title, so why don't you tell us a little something about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm approaching my 25th enrollment cycle. I've been at a couple different institutions in the Northeast. And a couple of years ago, I finished my dissertation at the University of Southern California. And I got into consulting for a year, was working with quite a few different schools. And one of my clients was Hartwick College. And the second I stepped foot on the Hartwick campus, I just felt this connection, looking over the Catskill Mountains, connecting with these great views. But then as I started meeting, the president, the senior leadership, and most importantly, the students, something about it felt right. I was thinking that I kind of wanted to get back onto a higher ed campus. And you know how these things go, John. The president and I just hit it off. And he asked me to join the team. The opportunity was there, and I did. But to get to your point about the athletics, once I started looking at the enrollment program, the financial aid program, the marketing program, there was this really storied history of athletics at Hartwick College. We're a 227-year institution. One really fun fact, we are still to this day the smallest school in the United States to ever win an NCAA Division I championship. In 1977,
Wow.
Our men's soccer team won the Division I national championship. And for really like 2 or 3 decades, Hartwick College was the mecca of men's soccer in the United States. We had Division I men's soccer, Division I women's water polo. We don't have those Division I teams anymore, but our athletic program, our athletic ethos is still a huge part of our culture. About 35 to 40% of our student body are student athletes. So as we started thinking about how we can really take Hartwick to the next level, we saw this incredible opportunity to really think about our admissions, financial aid, and athletics teams working together collaboratively for the best interests of our students.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because obviously so many students that apply to schools like Hartwick, they want to know the history, the culture, and you just gave such great insight in terms of that athletic history that is truly phenomenal. So, Dr. Gross, what innovative or unique academic programs at Hartwick set the institution apart, in addition to what you mentioned, and how do these programs prepare students for career success?
Great. Well, that's such a good question, and I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to just zoom up for a second because there's a lot of exciting new things happening at Hartwick. Just this past fall, we announced ourselves to the world as the Life Balance College. We really think in this marketplace, it's important to let our key stakeholders, students and families know what makes us a really unique and distinctive place. And our position as the Life Balance College is very intentional. At a high level, we really support students in learning what it means to live a balanced life so they can go out into the world and lead in a healthy place. And so when you think about the world today, the struggles and the stresses that a lot of families have, we really position ourselves differently. We're more than just about academics. We're more than just about careers. We're about helping students to live a balanced life. And we have 4 pillars that we focus on very clearly. 1 is academic well-being. 2 is physical and emotional wellness. 3 is healthy career outcomes. and 4 is financial health. And that's a really key one. We did a lot of research. 54% of all families will go to a college and university's website. They will see a college's sticker price and they'll decide not to apply. And so we at Hartwick decided that we wanted to be different. We decided to get rid of this high price, high discounting strategy. We lowered our tuition this year to $22,000. Tuition and fees straightforward. We have scholarships up to $10,000. And John, the reception has been amazing. I can't tell you how much families have appreciated our care and concern for students' entire well-being, but then also our really transparent pricing. So that's it about the position. I just wanted to see, what are your thoughts on that as before we go into unique programs?
Well, I think it's very important that you have the transparent pricing and you're talking about a balanced life. You're not only about academics, which so many schools, that's frankly what they talk about. I appreciate your 4 pillars. So, in terms of the transparent pricing, what do you recommend for families? Do you recommend that they use your net price calculator? How can they get a real sense, Dr. Gross, in terms of what they would actually pay if they're coming to Hartwick College?
Yeah. Well, again, first of all, there's not going to be a lot of hidden fees. There's not going to be, huge confusing scholarships that are stacked upon them. We're really clear on our website. We have a chart. We let students know the GPA, the scholarships that they'll get. They range from $6,000 to $10,000 per year. And then once they get their offer of admission, if they are accepted, and their scholarship offer, like all schools, it's so important that they file the FAFSA. But because we are small and we're so personal, we really do walk families through that process. And then, we take them through, depending on the data on the FAFSA. They're first eligible, of course, for federal grants, money they don't have to pay back. If they're New York State residents, they can qualify for the New York TAP grant. Then they'll get offered both the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. But the great thing about Hartwick is we also have need-based grants. So based on the family's level of need, about a third of our students will get up to an additional $2,500 back. So our net cost, so to answer your question, to know exactly what you pay, that FAFSA is highly recommended. But at the end of the day, our net cost, we're going head to head with the SUNYs. And that was also part of our decision-making process when we looked at where our prospective students are also applying. Of course, there's great private schools that we compete against, but we also know that in the state of New York, it's a heavy SUNY mindset. And a lot of families just think, if I want to be conscious with my money, I'm going to just apply to a SUNY first. We think that we offer as good or a better experience than the SUNYs, and we could go head to head with them at price, and they'll have a very different experience on our campus.
I appreciate that. And you talked a lot about your core missions and your values, again, going back to that transparent pricing. So, what else can you tell me about Hartwick's core mission and values? And how important is it for students to incorporate these into their college applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are at our core and our values a liberal arts college. And, unfortunately, in today's, world, a lot of people have a notion of what liberal arts means. And unfortunately, some people just think of the word liberal arts and they think of liberal, they think of politics. But, for us, it really has nothing to do with that. Liberal arts really means, teaching students how to think critically, helping students to engage in civil discourse. And when you do that, you're able to develop empathy, and that's what really leads to success out in the workforce. And the liberal arts means to us academic experimentation. We have over 50 programs, over 40 minors, but this is the type of place where we encourage this academic freedom where, of course, students pair traditional disciplines, business and economics or computer science and game development. But they're also doing things in a non-traditional way. We have students that are doing, political science and music. We have students that are studying, psychology and theater arts. And, all of these things are well within bounds. And we have a structure within our flexible curriculum that really allows students to not only graduate in 4 years, but we're one of the few schools that offer about 3/4 of our programs can be done in 3 years. And I think that's the beauty when you talk about our mission, when you talk about values, we're liberal arts, and that very much ties into the modern day world, this empathy, this civil discourse, this academic flexibility, and this interdisciplinary collaboration.
So, speaking of the interdisciplinary nature and your flexible curriculum, Dr. Gross, if students are able to articulate that they understand that as part of your core values and they're able to express perhaps what they did in high school that's in line with that throughout their application, would you say that's something that could help? And of course, there's no guarantees, right, ever of acceptance, but is that something, if students are able to portray throughout the application, that it would actually help them in the process?
Yeah, I would say without a doubt. And I think one insider trick that I want your, or tip, I should say, that I'd want your audience to know is that, we at Hartwick, and I hope at a lot of other schools too, our main goal when we review applications and render a decision is determining whether we feel that a student could be successful. That's what we want. It's not about stats or data or how we look or, wanting to deny a student. We want students to be able to be successful. You know the term retention, right? And so we think very deeply about, not only admitting students, but we think about our services and our programs that the students will receive once they arrive. And we're going to do everything that we can so that they can progress through the curriculum in 4 years and graduate and not only become, dedicated alum, but really, again, start their life off from a healthy place. We know how important that is.
Well, that's terrific. I appreciate that insight. And, since we're talking about the application review a little bit here, can you walk us through Hartwick's application review process and explain the relative importance of each part of the application? And of course, we're talking about grades, essays, recommendations, extracurriculars, and frankly, Dr. Gross, anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I was saying before, we want to be transparent. We want to be helpful. We do have a strategic advantage in the process in that we really have the staff to, whether it's a school counselor listening or, of course, a parent, we want to get to know them. We want to walk people through things. You could apply to Hartwick through either the common application or the application on our website. We've really gone through in the last year and tried to cut down the number of questions so that we're only asking the information that we actually use. We got rid of our application fee from an access perspective. As a parent myself, having gone through the process very recently, these application fees add up and they make a difference. And so we've gotten rid of that. I think the primary thing that we look at to start is the transcript. We count a lot on our relationships with school counselors. We were talking the New York State Association of College Admissions Counselor Conference. We care deeply about the college counseling profession. We want to support them. So we work really hard to communicate to our school counselors the type of students that we're looking for. And a lot of times we receive great feedback from them and the students that they send to apply. But we look at that transcript. We do wait then, or we do our own recalculation, of the transcript once we receive it. And we're looking for a couple different things. We're looking at the choices that students make and the courses that they take. We're looking for progression of grades. So we know that some students may struggle a little bit in the beginning, and we're okay with that. But we like to see, an upwards progression, in the transcript. We like to give students the opportunity if there's anything from a curricular perspective that they want to try to explain. We feel that the essay is a really good place for them to do that. And then, the other interesting thing, John, that we've spent a lot of time looking at and talking about, I would guess two things is we do look at the students' attendance, actually. We look at the number of absences and tardies, particularly their junior. And then we've had a lot of conversations about the importance of senior year class selection and then also senior year attendance. And that's really important to us because when it comes to kind of that momentum and students' ability to be successful, we think that junior and senior year is really important. And we've had conversations this enrollment cycle with students that may have had the grades, but we see an increased number of absences and tardies, and we want to know why. So I would definitely encourage students and families out there, once you get your college applications out, you're not done. Colleges are still looking at what you're doing your senior year, and they're wanting to see, really strong, consistent work there.
Well, I appreciate that because number one, students, you have to show up, right? So the attendance is really important, not only in ninth grade, 10th grade, and 11th, but continue in that senior year. Now, in terms of the transcript, obviously that's the most important piece of the academic review portion of the application. Doc, you mentioned that you recalculate the GPA. I was just curious, when you recalculate, are you recalculating all the grades or are you looking only at the core subjects?
Core subjects. That's a good question. That's
Yeah,
correct.
I appreciate that. And I mention it because a lot of times parents or students, they might be talking to a representative, whether it's a high school visit or a college fair, or perhaps they're lucky enough to be on campus. And so if that comes up in terms of the recalculation, it's a fair question to ask, whether it's all of the grades or if it's just the core subject. So we appreciate that. Now, Doc, with test optional policies gaining traction, how does Hartwick view standardized test scores within an applicant's overall profile?
Well, we are really a test optional institution. And so those that choose not to submit test scores are not at any disadvantage to those that do. If you want to submit your test score, we're happy to look at that test score. It can factor into your admissions and scholarship decision, but we truly are test optional and we want that to be an option for our students. So it's equal playing field, I would say.
Fantastic. So you're test optional. And do you allow students to superscore? And can you explain what this is and how it works?
Yeah, we do super score. We actually do the super scoring. So if we receive multiple, SAT or ACT results within our own system, it will super score for the students. And basically, what that means is if there's multiple instances in which a student takes a standardized test, we'll take the highest score from each administration of that examination to then lead to a larger super score, as they call it.
Great. And again, students and parents, a very valid question to ask is, do you superscore again when you're meeting with a college admissions rep? And doctor, how do you evaluate letters of recommendation? And what advice do you offer students and recommenders to ensure these letters enhance an overall application?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a lot of discussion. We've seen a changing, in terms of recommendations. And I'll be honest with you, they've been holding less and less weight for us at Hartwick over the years. We like to see at least one recommendation. We find that the most helpful recommendation that we receive for a student is the school counselor because we have relationships with the schools, and they know how to communicate to students both their strengths and their areas of development. And we hold that feedback really seriously because, again, it's really about the students being successful. By and large, most students have enough foresight to be asking for recommendations from people that are going to write them a good one. So when you're reading thousands of letters in a recruitment cycle, you're just reading a bunch of effusive letters about how great the students are. If you are going to send multiple acceptance recommendation letters to a school, I would recommend to students and families to diversify the people that they're asking. So, we'd like to see one in a core subject, maybe one from, like in my daughter's case, like she asked her dance instructor because dance is so important to her, maybe one from a community service project or organization, because then in that case, the letters of recommendation become an avenue to highlight diversity of talents, experiences, and opportunities that they've had.
Well, we appreciate that. And you've given us so many pearls to think about here so far. But what are some common mistakes you see in college applications? And what are some other practical tips you would offer students to avoid them?
Yeah, well, we haven't talked about the essay yet. The essay is really important. At Hartwick, we read the student's essay and we take it very seriously. I know students have heard this over and over again, but we still in this day we see students send us essays, but the school is another school, so we know that they're sending that same essay to multiple schools. Of course, there are mistakes here and there. We're not going to hold that strictly against the student, but we do sometimes receive essays that are really poorly constructed, clearly haven't been edited. So that's kind of basic stuff, John. Everyone says, got to be edited. But more and more now, we're seeing AI generated essays. And, obviously it's a hot topic of conversation. We can sniff those out a million miles an hour, a million miles away. There are clear conventions that tip us off. We have software, if we choose to use it, that could put a student's essay and tell us, the extent to which it may have been written by AI. So we really want to hear a student's authentic voice. And the best positive tip I would recommend when writing the essay is to really write, to entertain, to tell a story, to think about all the senses, to really try to tell a compelling story that gives the reader, the admissions counselor, a greater sense of who the student is and what are their motivations to be successful I'm going to repeat that again for the third or fourth time. Schools want students to be successful. And so when we admit a student, we want them to, of course, number one, enroll, but we want them to stay and to be able to graduate. And so it's really the opposite of what people think about this idea of, rejecting or sending a message so that other people, desire to get into that place even more because there are more rejections. It's really about success for us.
Yeah, it's definitely about success. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of look, the first thing that colleges and universities are looking for are can you handle the work on their campus? Because again, they want you to be successful students. And so the other thing is that they also want you to graduate, right? Because that's something that's important to you to have that retention, to have the students stay for 4 years and ultimately graduate. Now, Dr. Gross, you mentioned AI. So I was just curious, is Hartwick leveraging AI to manage and evaluate the thousands of applications received each year? And what should applicants know about this technology's impact on the process?
Right now we are in the evaluation phase. And so we are aware of the growing number of resources that exist in the world of admissions to do that evaluation. We still have a little bit of a classic take on the review of applications because through that process, it allows our admissions professionals to really get to know the students. It allows them to make notes on them. It allows them to think about ways in which we could connect and invite students to campus. And we don't have a formal way in which we score demonstrated interest, to be honest with you. But every single student or family that visits Hartwick, we strongly encourage them to engage in what we call an admissions chat. We don't use the word interview. That's scary, but an admissions chat. We want our admissions counselors to, sit down with the student, with the families. We want to hear what's on their mind. We want to learn more about them. And then when we're done with that chat, we go back into our office, we log some of those notes into the system. And so, John, if you're a prospective student and you told us about, how much you love the New York Rangers and ice hockey, we'll document that. And when I reach out to you next time, I might, ask you if you saw the game last night. We want to try to make those connections with students and families.
Absolutely, making those connections, which of course is so important to establish and build upon that community. I was wondering also, beyond managing, for example, the freshman class size, which is a typical institutional priority for every school, right? Everyone knows, okay, we're looking to enter 2,000 freshmen, 5,000 freshmen, whatever the number is. So beyond that freshman class size, what key institutional priorities influence admissions decisions at Hartwick?
Yeah, certainly programmatic, and you had asked me earlier in the conversation and I didn't answer it really directly, but, we really have a diverse set of programs. And so just to give you an example, one of our key programs on our campus is nursing. We have a direct entry Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We believe we have one of the best programs in the state of New York. The reason we believe we have one of the best programs in New York is we're one of the few programs that offer students a clinical experience right from their very first semester. The last 2 years, we have a 100% NACLEX pass rate, and we have state-of-the-art simulation labs on campus, and really one of the best groups of nursing faculty I've ever been a part of in my career. So the nursing program is highly competitive, right? And it's capped because of those clinical experiences. And so that's an example of one of our cohorts, that we look to manage. We have another, just to give you another example from the programmatic perspective, we just launched a new sport management program. Beyond our wildest expectations in the first year, we have close to 300 applications on there. And so for that too, as a new program, we know how many seats that we have in that program. We had a desired kind of goal to advance a certain number of students in our first cohort. So we're being a little bit more selective, with that first cohort. And so it really varies, again, on program, on capacity, on lab space. So that's kind of one way we manage it. The other way, which we talked about, is athletics. And so we have 22 division three, athletic programs. And there's a lot of data and science that goes into roster management. And so I work with the athletic director. I work at the coaches. We look at the number of lockers, the number of roster space, the number of uniforms. And then we look at the number of, graduating seniors every year, our retention rates of those students through there. And then that leaves a kind of a desired number of new students, either first year or transfer students that are going to have the opportunity to participate on, let's say, field hockey or lacrosse or tennis. And that number could be a little bit different every year. And so admissions is one thing, but a lot of times whether or not a student accepts our offer of admission is contingent on whether they'll have a spot on the team that they're interested in. And that number will fluctuate every year. So in the field of enrollment management, that's just kind of a sneak peek of those things. I think one other factor that the listeners might find interesting is, we have an incredibly generous philanthropic board of directors and a group of donors and alum who contribute to things. And sometimes we have endowed funds. We have money that is donated to us because donors are particularly interested in seeing certain programs or activities launch. So we have something, and I'll give you an example. We have something at Hartwick College called the J term, the January term. So it's a 3.5 week term, the start of January, where we have over 30 faculty-led experiences. These are actually courses, oftentimes interdisciplinary. Our faculty in the past year have gone to Scotland, they've gone to Morocco, they've gone to Tokyo, London, and our alumni will fund those and they'll offer scholarships. And so sometimes they get really passionate about particular initiatives. Like we had a J term where we sent a group of nurses to Cuba. And so that was funded, and we were looking for students in the admissions process who we thought would be a great fit for that program. So sometimes money and scholarship on a positive way really will shape some of our admissions and enrollment priorities.
Well, there's definitely so many opportunities that I frankly was not aware of at Hartwick. So I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. And it has been a phenomenal conversation, Dr. Gross. So I have to ask you, is there a question that I didn't ask or a topic that I simply didn't bring up that you wish I had and you want to leave with us now?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'd like to, talk about is, and I'll make a joke of it, every single college or university around the country talks about close personal attention from faculty, and, private schools will say, well, our faculty are really nice, and I will joke, like, you could go to one of the largest institutions. I'm a Penn State alum and a USC alum, and the faculty were really nice there. But at Hartwick, there is some sort of magic. And one of the key priorities of our faculty is not only teaching, but engaging in student faculty research. And that's another core of a liberal arts experience that you don't get in a lot of other places. And in this small, close-knit environment, we have faculty members that will take our undergraduates under their wing. And in our psychology program, they're actually going to conferences and winning awards with some of the most elite institutions around the country. We had a group of students that did research with faculty about nanotechnology, and they did a trip out to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley, to present that research. So that is really remarkable. And then within our Career Development Center, we have these things that kind of go hand in hand with the research called career exploration trips. So we take our students and cohorts long weekends from a Thursday to Sunday every single semester to Boston, to New York City, to Washington, D.C., where they connect with our alums, and they're actually doing a long weekend of shadowing at some of the biggest corporations around the country. So we're a small school intentionally, but we punch big with some of the biggest heavyweights out there. So I know another sports analogy, but just having fun with you here, John.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And this has been a lot of fun, and you really gave us so much great information. Unfortunately, Doc, it does bring us to that last question, which always is,
All right.
what are your top 3 pieces of advice that you would provide students and their families going through the college admissions process?
Yeah, I would say, advice, number one is, for students, know that whatever school you end up choosing to enroll in, your experience is all what you make of it. And, I've seen students that have gone to some of the most elite institutions in the country, and they don't utilize the resources and they don't have a great experience. And so I really do believe there are such quality educational institutions in the country, and it's really about students making the most of their opportunity. So don't stress. I guess that's my number 2 advice. Don't get caught up in the name brands and the Instagram boards of where everyone in your high school class is going. It's really about balancing the art and the science of making your selection. There's certain data points that will help you make your decision: major, location, size, of course, finances, but also allow your gut feeling to ultimately guide you too, because it's an important decision that the student should make for themselves as to where they're going to spend the next 4 years of your life. And then my last piece of advice is I know, particularly with students and family members, it could be stressful, right? It could be tense. It could be arduous. Really try to have fun. Have fun with the process. Go visit colleges when you're on a family vacation. For students and parents, have a conversation at the beginning of the process to kind of set clear boundaries about when are good times and when are not good times to talk about college. But don't take it so seriously. It's really not life or death. There's a college out there for everyone. So just don't let yourself get sucked into a spirit of negativity. Have a sense of humor and have fun.
Well, and you definitely should have a sense of humor and have a lot of fun throughout the process. And it's definitely, an opportunity, students, to really even get to know about yourself. Do you want to be close to home, far from home, urban area, suburban, rural, what have you? And so really, like Dr. Gross said, enjoy the process, try not to stress out, and you will find the right fit for you. Dr. Gross, this was awesome. You're incredible. I really appreciate it as you gave so much advice and tips for students and their families. Thank you so much, Dr. Gross. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
You too, Doc. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.